Wildfire season is here. So what you gonna do? Hey everyone, if there is a question that I get all the time when talking about clients who are considering relocating to the Central Oregon area, well, I mean, I really don't get it all the time, but it's definitely something that we should talk about and that I feel like that I need to bring up so that they're aware, right? Because if there's one thing that is kind of a negative when living in Central Oregon, it's the tourists. No, I'm just kidding. Tourists are great. No, it's definitely wildfire season. So let's talk about it. We're gonna unpack the good, bad, and the ugly of the Central Oregon wildfire season right now. But first, this wasn't a part of the original script here, but in light of what has just recently happened, I wanted to send a quick message out there to all those on Maui who have been affected by the devastating wildfires out there in the Lahaina area. It's just an absolute tragedy. We've got friends that have lost everything, and it's so sad. Our hearts and prayers go out to all of those out there in Hawaii who are suffering from this tragedy. I'm gonna go ahead and put a link down in the description where you can, donate to the relief fund. I'll put a link in the description, you can check that out. We've donated to this relief fund ourselves, and we encourage everyone out there who can to please maybe contribute a little bit to this relief fund. Let's continue to support the victims, of these just terrible wildfires in Maui. Wildfires, how bad is it here? Or something close to that is usually what we hear from people that ask us about it that are considering relocating here, right? And of course the answer that I give is, it's really not that bad. But that's my answer. Look, if you're a local and you happen to see this video on YouTube and you're upset that I'm trying to, basically help others move here and give them the information they need to move here, you might get in the comment section down below and you might say something like,
"Oh, the wildfires are so bad, you shouldn't move here."
Or,
"I moved away because the wildfires are so bad."
Look, this is very much a personal tolerance type issue. And I will say that for me, it does get annoying sometimes in the summer, but ultimately, I personally don't know anybody who has moved away from Central Oregon because of the wildfires and the smoke that comes in. But I will say that I do know plenty of people that have moved here from other parts of the country, California, that have had it with the wildfires that they have to experience over there. So, meh. Now we will get to the actual wildfires here in just a moment, but I want to go ahead and lead off with the biggest bummer that I find out of all of this, and that is the smoke. Smoke from wildfires all over the state and all across the Pacific Northwest creates smoke that oftentimes does kind of drift and make its way into the Central Oregon area. And that to me is truly the biggest bummer about the whole thing. Unhealthy air quality conditions can pose serious health risks to those who are sensitive to it. In fact, when you see that it's a little hazy outside, checking the air quality index, the AQI, is actually a very common practice for people here. It's kind of like, checking the UV ratings or the humidity rating, like say you were in the South. Only, it doesn't matter really how humid it is, it's just how comfortable it is. It sucks. But here, if the AQI is actually really high, it's a serious problem. You don't want to go outside. I will also say that the last couple of years haven't been so bad. This year, there were a few days, about a month and a half ago, that were kind of smoky, maybe mid-July-ish. And then smoke did roll in a few days ago, and that was actually thicker than we've seen in a year or two. But it doesn't last long, a couple of days, then it blows out. But it's absolutely one of those Murphy things. Whenever we're trying to shoot a video and we're trying to showcase the mountains behind us, the smoke blows in and just ruins it. Actually, I just thought of this, and this is a really great comparison. The smoke in the summer is actually very similar to like snow here in the winter. Every winter we get snow. That's a given. And it's nice, but it's not really that bad. We get a few inches here and there over the course of the winter, a few different times we get snow, and it's really not that bad. However, every, maybe 5 to 7 years, we get hammered with like feet and feet of snow. And that comes with obviously its own set of challenges, right? Same thing with the smoke. Every summer, we get smoke. Not always from a wildfire that's really close by. Sometimes it's, somewhere way, tens or hundreds of miles away. But every summer we get smoke into the area. But then again, every 3 to 5, maybe 7 years, we get a really bad fire that brings in a ton of smoke and kind of just chokes out the city for a few days, you know? The most recent big one was in 2020. Gosh, remember that year? It sucked. Actually, it was the largest wildfire season in Oregon history. The wildfires in Oregon burned over 1 million acres and destroyed thousands of homes, burnt entire cities to the ground, and the smoke that came from these fires choked out the city so much, actually still even most of the state so much, that you couldn't even see your neighbor's house across the street. Or next to you even. And you know how close the neighbors are right to the left and right of you here in Central Oregon, right? People were trapped in their homes because the air quality was so bad they couldn't even go outside for more than a couple of minutes. It was extremely hazardous. There was so much smoke that it was not only visible from space, which is actually kind of a common thing, believe it or not, but the smoke that was generated from the Oregon fires swept across the entire nation. We were lucky and fortunate, in fact, that we were actually out of town during those approximately 10 days where the smoke was thick in the Central Oregon area. But that didn't stop the smoke from chasing us. We were over in Yellowstone. It came all the way over to there, and then beyond that towards the Tetons where you almost couldn't even see the mountains over there. It was really, really bad. We were away for 10 days and we got back. We had to change the air filter in our house because it was black. Yet, even though no air movement was really happening in the house, we didn't open the doors or windows or anything, there was nobody there. All right, fun and tragic story about 2020 over. Can we move on? Okay, so why do we even have wildfires? Well, obviously because we live in a fairly rural area and we are surrounded by thousands, well actually hundreds of thousands of forested acres. And much of that forest land is on the high desert, so not much rain, right? So yeah, depending on the spring snowpack, usually the forest is dry enough and ready to burn by about July-ish, which also happens to be in correspondence with when they put bans on campfires.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Now, I would love to say that most forest fires are started by, like lightning from some sort of thunderstorm. But sadly, most wildfires, I think it's 80 to 90% of wildfires are human caused, which is just absolutely outrageous if you ask me. I mean, I can't even believe it. And what can we do about them? Well, there are certainly a lot of political discussions around forest management, but one of the main things that does happen frequently, I think that happens frequently. It seems like it happens frequently enough. Maybe not. Again, this isn't a political arena that I follow closely, but prescribed burns are something that you should take note of and definitely be aware of. So sometimes in the fall and spring, prescribed burns are put in place to basically clear out and burn off all of the underbrush in the forest that is actually responsible for helping wildfires spread so quickly. So even though the smoke is a common party pooper in the summer, sometimes even from the prescribed burns, we can get smokes a little bit drifting into town in the spring and in the fall. Now next we're gonna talk about what you can do and or prepare for if there is a wildfire within the near area. But before we do that, we just want to remind you that if you do know of someone who is looking to buy or sell in the area, we know you have options out there, but we would love to be your real estate resource of choice. You can reach out to us by finding our contact information down below in the description, or you can just stalk us and go to our website, krommrealestate.com. Okay, let's talk about what happens if a hot fire is threatening the area. Now, occasionally we do get a fire that does develop and it does actually threaten to come close to the area. Okay, we've already talked about the Aubrey Hall fire, which destroyed like 3,000 acres just to the west of Bend. That area, that was back in 1990, that area is now actually home to a few actually really high-end kind of wealthy neighborhoods. Most notably Tethero, if you've heard of that. I've done a video on it. The Two Bulls fire of 2014 is also another one, and a more recent one, that actually got pretty close to town as well. I remember driving up to watch it from the top of Aubrey Butte at night. You could just see the forest glowing. It was pretty wild. So occasionally fires do get close. Fortunately, wildfires aren't new to Central Oregon, and fire mitigation tactics have already been implemented to prevent fires from developing and or growing near or in town. The west side of Bend, which we've already mentioned has been affected by wildfires in the past, is obviously a high-risk area. And because of that, the communities in these high-risk areas already have very restrictive fire codes, building codes in place to reduce the risks. Many of these communities are also set on larger acreages, with landscaping regulations minimizing fuels nearby, including 3 zones of defensible space, and building codes that utilize fire-resistant materials. If a fire does rear its ugly head near a community, there are a series of evacuation levels for those people in those communities to be prepared to respond to. Level 1, get ready. Without beating this up too much, you need to be prepared. You need to have all of your close personal effects, important documents in order, ready to grab at a moment's notice, including insurance information and all important documents such as passports, birth certificates. Consider taking a video of everything in your house, documenting all of your belongings. Hopefully not, but this could be important for insurance adjusters later on. Level 2, be set. This may be the last warning you get if the fire advances, much faster than anticipated. Continue to closely monitor TV and radio and social platforms to make sure that you don't miss the level 3 or the advancement of the fire. Level 3 is go. Get out. It's too late. It's become too dangerous and you've got to leave. Now, ultimately, in my opinion, the risk of wildfire is not something that is hurting the propensity of people wanting to move to the area. But as a final note about that, there is an increasing problem that's beginning to develop with respect to insurance coverage in the area. Many insurance companies are having a hard time because of all the payouts that they've had to basically fulfill because of the 2020 fires. And some of them are either increasing their coverage rates pretty dramatically or refusing coverage in general in some areas around Central Oregon. This is still a fairly recent concern or things that we've noticed, so it'll be kind of interesting to see how this pans out over the course of the future. We actually had a client looking to buy a property down in the Three Rivers South, below Sun River area, and the home that we were actually under contract with was flat uninsurable. Yeah, the funny part is it was actually on the Deschutes River in a flood zone and in a fire zone. So it was in a flood zone and a fire zone. Figured that one out. Hey, again, I think the moral of the story here is that nowhere you live is perfect. Hurricanes sound terrible to me. Tornadoes? No thank you. Constant 120 degrees all the time, year round? No. Or maybe living in an area where you only get 1 hour of daylight in the entire day? Here, you only have to worry about a little smoke. Or potentially a volcano erupting. Nah, I'm just kidding. That only happens like once every 300,000 years or something like that. So I think we're good there. As always, thanks so much for watching. My team and I are always here for you. If you're looking to buy or sell in the area, give us a call. And of course, be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, all that jazz. You know how important it is to our channel. We really appreciate you. Thanks again. Cheers. We'll see you next week. Hold on a second. I gotta make sure because I raised the screen on the computer. Is it in the foreground, busting up the shot? No, okay, good. Whew.